In the past 12 months, China has become the center of attention. Suddenly, thousands of people have started to show interest in its futuristic cities and its culture. But what many of them don't know is that just a few decades ago, traveling to this country was practically impossible. The story begins in 1949 with the fall of the nationalist government. Until then, China frequently received thousands of foreign visitors in port cities like Shanghai and tourist destinations like Beijing. But everything changed when the Communist Party arrived. From that moment on, the country closed its borders, and for almost 3 decades, traveling to China became a privilege reserved for a few. Among the exceptions were diplomatic missions, select journalists, and friendly delegations who could enter under strict supervision. But to give you an idea of what China was like before, just think of North Korea, for example. To this day, there is no way to visit North Korea as a tourist. And it can only be done during special events, such as the Pyongyang Marathon, which just took place about a month and a half ago. And while I was doing this research, I came across a New Yorker article by a journalist who was lucky enough to be invited on one of these trips. And it's incredible how he describes the feeling of entering the country. At that time, they did it from Hong Kong, where they took a train to the city of Shenzhen. Of the 24 American tourists arriving, many were nervous and scared because they didn't know what to expect. And probably what they had heard about this country wasn't always entirely good. However, in the year 1973, things took an unexpected turn when the Chinese government surprised the world by choosing a single city to break the isolation. And today we are here to get to know it. Welcome to Guilin. In the previous episode, we left the city of Yangshuo heading to the Longji rice terraces. But when we arrived at the station, it was already too late and we had to stay an entire day. To not waste it, we came up with the idea of doing a city walk. If you've never heard that word, it's because it's a term that emerged after the pandemic when young people needed outdoor activities and didn't want to use public transportation. As a result, many of them started exploring their cities on foot and sharing their best routes on social media. Some of them are focused on food, others on tourism or history. And since we're not experts, we chose the most popular one to start our exploration. But first we have to ask when the buses leave for the place we need to visit. How much time does the bus give you to visit? We already have our tickets for the rice terraces, 60 yuan each. Today the last bus is until 3 o'clock, and that wouldn't be enough time to explore the city. So we've decided to buy it for tomorrow at 7:30, and that way we'll have a full day in the city of Guilin. Now we're arriving at Elephant Trunk Park, which is one of the most iconic symbols of the area. And that's why you're greeted with lots of little elephant signs around here. I love that all around the park there are beautiful elephant statues. But what people come to see is a mountain or a rock formation shaped like an elephant's trunk, which is very beautiful. And for many years it was the symbol of tourism in this country because, as I mentioned before, this city was one of the first to open up to foreign tourism. What we have in front of us is the elephant's trunk, although to really see its shape you have to stand over there.
When Max said, "No, we're going to Guilin," I replied, "But we've already been to Yangshuo." From the beginning, I kind of thought that maybe it wouldn't have as much essence, but the truth is that it does. The most interesting thing about this city is that it's a real, proper city built in this landscape.
Look, I love the clothes old people wear. If you notice, most of the tourists are elderly people, as you can see throughout the whole country. They're people who have already retired and are now enjoying tourism. Because throughout their lives they grew up hearing stories about Beijing, Shanghai, Guilin, and they didn't even have the chance to come. In fact, many of them may have never even allowed themselves to dream of traveling around their country because it wasn't allowed. They were already used to the idea. They never would have imagined that they would live through the period of greatest growth in this country. And even less that suddenly they would become the #1 emerging power, the country with the most technology, drones everywhere, robots, electric cars, and so on. I always tell Noelia that a grandma over 80 and still living here, she likely leaves the house without trying to understand what's happening anymore.
Can you imagine how generations will change now? I mean, do you compare my cousin who's 10 years old with the generation that's being born now with AI and ChatGPT? They're going to be like us. No, back in my day you had to go to Google to search.
Nowadays, Googling is starting to sound like having video home system or beta, right?
I was just telling Gaz that my dad has like our whole life recorded. He started recording when they were cassettes. He once said, "This is very inconvenient, I'm going to start changing it," and began transferring everything to CDs. However, it took him so long that technology changed and CDs became useless too.
Yeah, we really live in a world of extreme speed. Those are the famous bamboo rafts that have become very popular in Yangshuo, but originally existed here. And today they offer you a raft ride along the entire Liang River. By the way, this river is the same one that reaches Yangshuo. And when there are floods, they usually start here, and if it's very serious, they have to open the dam and then the flood reaches Yangshuo. That's what happened to us when we were living there. In fact, they warned us about the flood almost 48 hours before it happened, because this city was flooded first. They had enough time to warn us 2 days earlier so people could prepare.
Do you know how you can also notice the generational change? Look at the poses young people make and the poses older women make. The girls here might do poses more like this and like this. And the lady over there is doing more of a pose like this from the side.
And this is the most traditional photo. The one everyone wants is the photo with the bamboo raft. Cormorants common in the area were mentioned to you yesterday in Yangshuo. Cormorant fishing is typical of Guilin. It's a type of fishing where they train the birds so that they are the ones who bring the fish to the fishermen, but nowadays they've become influencers.
They have 800,000 more videos than us. We need to try harder.
A job that's become very trendy is being a travel photographer in China. You'll find photographers like him everywhere, and they do excellent work. The key is knowing how to pose. I love this newspaper vending machine where you can print your face. That way you can become the main headline in Guilin. Great souvenir. 5. Okay, that's what I call entrepreneurship, huh? Some entrepreneurs solve existing needs. The best create them. Are you an entrepreneur?
Yes!
I heard there were many foreigners here in the 70s and even more in the 80s.
There were more in the 80s. I'm from Yangshuo's West Street, where there were many foreigners.
Are you serious?
Yes, many of them were teachers.
Oh, I see.
In private schools where they teach English.
And now there aren't many foreigners.
There aren't many foreigners?
Why?
They closed those schools.
The gentleman just mentioned something very interesting, which is that starting in 2021, many foreigners left China due to an educational reform called the double reduction. In short, this reform practically dismantled the private tutoring industry, prohibiting profit from school subjects, including English. And you can't imagine the number of private English schools there used to be. They opened one on almost every corner. And the most interesting thing is that to be an English teacher at a school like that, you didn't need to have great credentials. The only requirement was to be a foreigner and know English. In fact, that was one of the reasons why the government decided to regulate the industry starting in 2021. There was a tremendous exodus of teachers who didn't have the qualifications and many others who simply decided to leave because they couldn't find work. Thank you very much, sir. See you later. Hey, I told him that back then foreigners here made a lot of money, right? And he says to me, "Oh yes, a whole lot." But now it's not allowed anymore. He told me that back in the 80s there were so many foreigners here that one of the main streets in Yangshuo was known as Yangrenjie, which means Foreigner Street. But since it sounded a bit inappropriate, they changed the name to Siji, which means Western Street, so it wouldn't be Foreigner Street, but rather Western Street. Here there's a dilemma among foreigners about whether lawai is an offensive term or not. Lawai is similar to saying gringo. It's like a way to refer to foreigners that originally isn't offensive, but many foreigners get offended by it.
It's really interesting because when I got my license in Mexico, since I wasn't Mexican yet and didn't have a passport, it said foreigner and I took my license with me. One summer while visiting my family in Spain, I showed it to my uncles and they found it offensive. That my license said foreigner, even to this day, I don't understand why it was offensive. They said in Spain, having foreigner on your license if you're from another country would be unacceptable.
This is one of the strangest tourist traps I've ever seen. Here, in the middle of the river, they have water guns with their QR code. You scan it and then you enter into a water fight against the people on the other side.
In Yangshuo, I've always wanted to try some tourist activities, but we've never felt encouraged due to the price. Like paragliding and hot air ballooning, would you think the same way? Yes, it can be costly, but how much does it cost? It turns out that it costs 1,500 yen per person to ride a hot air balloon for 15 minutes.
Great business. Which country are you from? I'm Mexican. You speak very well. Where? Is everything from Mixue Bingcheng? Mixue Bingcheng what? 5, 100, 8, 200. Okay, I'll take a look. He went to the famous Mixue Bingcheng store, bought 50 cups and brought them here to sell since it's hot and Mixue Bingcheng is far away. 5 yen, and besides it's not even that expensive.
We had all heard about concert ticket scalpers, but had you ever heard of people reselling Starbucks drinks or something like that?
Now we're arriving at one of the main attractions and one of the most iconic places in the city of Guilin, which are the Sun and Moon Pagodas. The Sun Pagoda has its color because it's made of copper and has 9 floors. On the other hand, the Moon Pagoda is made of marble and has 7 floors. Interestingly, both are linked by an underwater tunnel, allowing travel between them beneath the lake. The meaning of these two towers is Yin-Yang, which is a philosophical principle that represents duality and balance in all things. It's something you'll find everywhere in China, and it really represents the philosophy of this country. Yin usually means darkness, cold, femininity, passivity, and receptivity, while Yang is brightness, warmth, masculinity, activity, and creativity. I don't think I need to say which is which, but if I do, can you guess which is Yin and which is Yang, which is Yin?
Yin can be the smaller one, and Yang is this one here, flying, floating.
And what do you think modern society would think about Yin being associated with the feminine, the cold, the passive, the receptive? I think nowadays it could even be controversial, right? Because the sun is masculine, it's strength, brightness, warmth, active, creative, while the moon is feminine, it's dark, cold, passive, receptive. You know, like the qualities that in the past fathers and grandfathers used to attribute more to women.
The only controversy may be whether something is feminine or masculine. Yin and Yang are two parts of one whole, so removing or being flexible with that concept changes its meaning. Everyone has Yin and Yang, it's about which one you develop more, and you don't have to choose one over the other. Some concepts may no longer be needed. You said it has a tunnel, you can be in it closer to one or the other.
What a good analogy. I didn't expect we'd gain so much depth from coming to Guilin, no matter how we look at it. The Chinese believe that one cannot exist without the other, and that there is a mutual interdependence that is vital for the balance of this planet. And that's why they're connected by the underwater tunnel. That reflects the need they have for each other. But these pagodas aren't the only signs of yin and yang. Locals believe Guilin's landscape itself symbolizes yin and yang. That the balance that exists in this landscape and in the nature of the karst mountains and so on is a reflection of that yin and yang. They believe the mountains are yang and the river is yin. Is it their balance that gives this place its beauty and harmony? Apparently, you can enter the pagodas. You just have to buy your ticket, which costs 35 yen, and you can do it right in front of the entrance. This is a 5A attraction, as we mentioned to you in other videos. Attractions are classified from 1A to 5, and 5 is the highest established in the country. So, it must be either very beautiful, very entertaining, or rich in history. I love visiting temples in China because they're full of statues and figures that have a lot of meaning. For example, these here are called Tongzi, which are guardian children, and in China, children are closely related to fertility and abundance. And in temples and gardens, statues of children are usually placed in different positions, often very playful, and they serve as guardians of the temple. Also, there are frogs. Frogs hold significant meaning in Chinese culture. For instance, in Feng Shui, a three-legged frog often has a large coin in its mouth. It is known as the golden frog and usually attracts prosperity, abundance, and money. And look, here we have another one of the children who is playing with a little yellow ball, which sometimes can mean wisdom and enlightenment. And at the entrance of the temple, we have the 12 rings of the Chinese zodiac, which are very beautiful. And there's also a very interesting legend that says the animals of the Chinese horoscope were chosen from a race organized by the gods, in which they said that the first 12 animals to arrive would be chosen to be part of the zodiac. The rat is especially notable because it's said to be so clever it tricked the ox by claiming the race started earlier. And then it climbed onto its back, and thanks to that it managed to arrive faster than animals like the hare or the jaguar. So, it's considered a very clever and intelligent zodiac sign, unlike what you might think of as an unwanted rat, right? Inside the temple we find something very interesting, which is the Luopan compass. This is traditionally used in Feng Shui to give predictions or personal interpretations. Let's say it's as if we mix Chinese astrology, palmistry and Feng Shui with some little machines. Unlike the old ones, this one is electronic. What you have to do is scan your QR code, make your payment, choose what kind of prediction you want, for example, your financial outlook, your love destiny, or the luck you'll have in your career. And then you have to place the palm of your hand here. And the Luopan will automatically make a prediction and print out a report for you, so you know how things will go and what you can do to make things better. These rings are hard to explain because they involve several concepts you should study first. Many Chinese people also don't know this. Like the 8 trigrams of the I Ching, the 10 heavenly stems, the 12 earthly branches, the Chinese zodiac animals and other influencing factors. And it's not cheap at all. It costs 20 yuan, which is about 50 pesos or $275, and people are happy to pay for it. They want to know what kind of luck they'll have throughout the year. We've reached the top of the pagoda, from where you get an impressive view of the Sun Pagoda. But what I like the most is finding all these red plaques around here, which are known as Shu Yuan Pai, and they're plaques that people leave here with wishes. Many of them have to do with money, job opportunities, and love. But there are also many others that have to do with health, or niche competitions that don't always fit these aspects. For example, here we have one that says Zhao Yuan Guangjin, which means that wealth flows abundantly here. We have one requesting happiness and abundance, and another asking for health and longevity. And all of them have the names of the people who put them up. What if they hang them here? It's because many Chinese people believe that by hanging it at the top of the pagoda, it's easier for their wishes to be heard. And by having the windows open, the wind carries those wishes and makes them heard everywhere, and yes, you can really feel it here. The wind's flow is beautiful. We didn't bring a wooden plaque, but symbolically we'll hang an invisible wish so that this video reaches more people and can keep growing. Family, so if you help us share it, that would be wonderful. From here you can see the underwater passage that connects the 2 towers, and that for a while was closed due to flooding. It must have been a problem to empty it, right? Imagine, they must have needed a pretty powerful pump because they say it was terrible. In fact, many people died back then. And the craziest thing is that we were also in Guilin. We were just in another place called Yangshuo, where the water arrives later. Even though it doesn't look like it, this is the underground passage that connects the 2 pagodas. It's incredible to think that a year ago this was completely flooded. This filled up with water and people couldn't get through. Fortunately, they've already restored it and now there's no problem. And I'm really glad because we couldn't miss out on this. And look at these beautiful images they have here of Buddha and the mystical characters that would take us a whole lifetime. Learning the history and mysticism related to Buddhism, but I really think it would be worth studying. Now we're going up. This time we're going to have to climb 10 floors. You can really feel the change in temperature, just like I told you. This pagoda is made of copper and absorbs a lot of heat, but that's what gives it its characteristic beautiful color. We've reached the top floor, but it's under repair right now, so it's not very accessible. But look, it has air conditioning. Now the universe is in harmony. Noelia is at the top of the moon tower and I'm at the top of the sun tower. Originally, according to the ancient concept, that's how it was seen. The sun tower was the masculine force and the moon tower was the feminine force. Today, concepts have changed, but that's how it was originally. Now we are in Dongxixiang, which is one of the most iconic and picturesque places in Guilin. And it is a renovated historic district that combines traditional architecture with local culture, gastronomy, and commerce. There are many alleys like these in China. There are many alleys full of history, but each one has very different elements depending on the area where you are. What is true is that young Chinese people consider that all these alleys are very commercial nowadays. And it's true that in many of them you find the same stores: Kentucky Fried Chicken, blue and white clothing, jewelry. Oh look, they have a llama here. I haven't seen llamas elsewhere in China, but Yangshuo has them. I feel sorry because it's especially hot in summer, but it's a way for them to attract attention. In some places they go out and clap, shout, sometimes they have music, models, hostesses, but in this case they decided to put a llama.
Why do they do that? It's always like tea shops have llamas and also peacocks.
Yeah. Look, it's already the mascot of the whole gang. Over there they have a cat. When are you ever gonna see a llama and a cat hanging out in an alley? So how do you say that in Chinese? Yang Tuo. These are magnets we hadn't seen elsewhere. They're the classic little crowns that accompany traditional Zhuang clothing. Another popular tourist activity is sending letters and postcards from your travel destination. Here's the China Post mailbox, so you can send a postcard from places like Guilin's elephant trunk or even the most remote village in China. There is a post office almost in the middle of nowhere which claims to be the northernmost post office in the country. Many people visit just to send a postcard from that place. These are the two most famous alleys in the city. This is Jiangnanxiang and over here is Dongxixiang. And it's really nice because then you run into people dressed in the traditional clothing of the era, and it gives a lot of atmosphere just like anywhere else. And everything is adapted to the details of the local architecture. For example, the bathroom signs feature the typical clothing of the ethnic minorities from the area. Hello, how are you? Hello, what? Hello, how are you? Hello, what? He claims it's Guilin's specialty, but she doesn't seem convinced. How are you? Hello, how are you? I must give you 8 pieces first, then add 2 more before I can give it to you. Oh, okay. Fa.
How do you play with the lady?
She said it was 10 yuan, so I gave her 8 and showed her. She replied, what? But it was 10. I told her, no, I gave you 8 because 8 is the lucky number so you can get rich, and now I'll add 2 more. Then she laughed and, that's cool.
Now it all makes sense, but you still haven't said what it is?
This is the area's typical dessert. The lady said it's called guihuagao. It has no flavor. It's like tamale dough. Delicious. It's like a tamale, but it has much less sugar than a Mexican sweet tamale, and inside it has a sesame filling. It's a very healthy dessert, and I shouldn't be talking with my mouth full.
Wow, this is wild. It's really curious where they put churches in this country. Yeah, it's really curious. It's just out of nowhere, I mean. Therefore, usually the slightly older churches around the world have this kind of architecture. A tower with a bell tower, these pointed roofs. It depends on where you are, but you can immediately tell that it's a church, right? But the funny thing is that here, when I look at it, I kind of do, but I also kind of don't know why. It makes me think it's a church with a bit of a Chinese style. And look at the name of the church in Chinese. It says Temple of the King of Heaven. These are the church's opening hours, from 7:30 in the morning to 12 noon, then they close and open again from 2:30 to 6 in the afternoon. Every time I come across a church, I feel like going in to see what they're like inside, if they have something different and if it's a strange experience. We went to one in Tianjin, so on this side, I'll leave you a card so you can go watch that video. It's a city with a lot of European influence from multiple countries. They always have really cute souvenir shops on these streets. They have really interesting items. For example, Max just noticed that they have these little keychains or pendants, I don't really know what they are, with different phrases. For example, this one says, "Long live the People's Republic of China." Also, they go into these kinds of stores and see multiple images dating back to the time when Mao Zedong was around, which was propaganda for everyone. Together we have to work and lift up this country. You see this hardworking man. But the most curious thing about this store, which has a lot of images of communism and old political propaganda, including a photo of Mao Zedong, is that it's a candy store. Look over here. We have all kinds of Chinese candies, and you can see they're quite different from what we would have in Mexico. They really like these kinds of little candy boxes that have taro-flavored candies. You can also find various souvenirs to take back to your country to give to your family. For example, this little pig or magnets, they already have Chinese characters and the red and gold colors, which are so typical in this country. I just found this candy, which is really funny, believe it or not. When I saw it, I thought it was chocolate, obviously because of the color, but it turns out it's mango flavored. This candy only costs 3 yuan, pretty good deal. Let's see what Max thinks.
They look completely unappetizing, just gummies shaped and colored like poop.
How funny. Look at this gummy. Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to eat my poop. It's delicious. For many in Mexico, this will be normal. But I'm completely surprised because I had never seen anything made from cactus being sold in China. I told the young man that here we grill it with cheese, and he just said, ah, okay. I don't know how common this drink he's selling is because the cactus that was there was for making drinks. Max just found a machine that, how did you call it?
Vending machine for toy cars. But I wish there was a Xiaomi car, because all of these are foreign cars.
Right behind us, there's a person walking by with a parrot. I have to say that here in Guilin, or rather in Yangshuo, because I've never been to Guilin, is where I've had the strangest experiences with animals. One day I was coming back home and I ran into a vendor who had a cart with his products, and on top of the cart he had a peacock. All of this that we just saw was in an underground passageway they built to cross this street over here. We were on the other side before. Here you can see the reason why we crossed the street. All of this is full of delicious food. It looks like we've reached the center of this street. And this commercial area, compared to the one in Yangshuo, is much bigger. Look, all these street vendors have things that shine. I don't know what they are, like pagoda-shaped keychains. But the most curious thing is that once again we found a llama, and in this case its hair is dyed. Today we were following a guide that we found on Chinese social media. Honestly, it has been super helpful. Are we going to put the image somewhere or upload it for the channel members? And what did it say? The guide said that what we had to do at the end of the day was go see the pagodas again. But at night, because they light up, they turn on the lights and it looks super beautiful. I think one of the most beautiful things about walking around a place like this is seeing that it's a place the locals really enjoy. I'm seeing kids playing. There's music over here.
No.
The other one says, so it becomes his dinner.
What's up, do they eat them here? I guess so, but that's interesting. No, we're right in the city. Look, we're not on the outskirts or anything. Here, the highway, the buses.
I think there were even people saying things like, no way, don't do that.
Leave him there with his snakes in his hand just like it's nothing.
No way, that's hilarious. Only in this place. Welcome to Guilin. If that wasn't a great welcome, I don't know what is. That's all for today. See you tomorrow with another video because we're going to travel to a place with people who have very interesting customs.
In Hongyao, women cut their hair only once in life. Fallen hair can't be removed and must stay on the head.
See you in the next video. Goodbye.